So moving on, Peter. Since we last spoke, you've resigned from Nottingham. You've announced your plans to leave. I'm certainly not going down any legal route with this because I understand that there are still discussions ongoing. But I would say certainly you have been quite vocal in the past where you've said to trainers, and this is with any company. We're not dealing with particular company that you're dealing with, but with any company, keep some flexibility in terms of your working arrangements because there's a possibility, is there not, that some of these trainers could find life difficult for themselves unless they retain that freedom to change jobs.
Yeah, I think in today's world, an 18-month rolling contract, and this is rolling, and I've always kept telling people, after 18 months, you're not out of contract. You need to get your notice in, and then you've got 18 months when you will be out at some point in time. Now, I have no doubt, like what happened with me a while back, within a year of that 18 months coming up, I was given another contract to sign. And exactly the same again as I did the time before. I signed it and I gave a notice in straight away. You've got to give your notice straight in as soon as you get these contracts. You're not saying you're leaving. There's nobody saying that you actually want to go away from the track or you want to leave the track. All you're doing is you put yourself in a position that, in 18 months' time, you can renegotiate a new contract if you want one, or you can leave if you want to. But at this point in time, while you're tied in, you can't. And what people got to realise is these contracts do not guarantee you work or guarantee you the usage of your dogs. All you're doing is guaranteeing that you will supply runners. If you read your contracts, it tells you how many you've got to supply. It doesn't tell you they will use that many of them dogs. So, if a track loses some meetings or it goes down to one meeting a week, if they've got 200 dogs and they only need 100, there'll be 100 dogs sat in the bed not being paid for. So you do not want to be part of that 100 with the dog sat in the bed not being paid for, and you can't leave because you're tied into a contract. So get your notice out there, give yourself some flexibility, and get yourself ready for your next step, whichever that will be.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's similar kind of situation to Peterborough. Had people decided to enforce it and said to the Peterborough trainers, "I'm sorry, but you can't go anywhere else. You're still contracted to us." I guess once the track actually closes, I don't know whether the contract will be covered.
Yeah, it breaks the contract then if it does break the contract. So, but like I said to you a while back when you were talking about contracts, and I said, don't mention contracts, Floyd. I'm out of contract, and I don't want anybody clicking onto the fact that I'm out, and I need to keep my freedom to see what I'm going to do. So it's the Peterborough people could have been tied in for a while if it had been down to one meeting and they couldn't have moved anywhere. But once it were closed, then they were free because one party couldn't honour the contract. So, but definitely, I will at some point in time on Twitter, I will put up some sort of pro forma of a notice what to do, because you've got to do it properly. You've got to do it right. If you leave yourself open, if you don't. So I will do that for the trainers to get themselves sorted.
Yeah, I produced an editor's chair that still hasn't been published, and quite in which order we do this one or the editor's chair first, I don't know. But I have drawn attention to the fact that there are going to be some very big changes in terms of personnel and where they want to race. Because, I have it on, the rumor's been knocking around, and I've been in this industry too long to just jump on every rumor. But certainly I've done some sniffing around at quite a reasonable level to find out about the rumours about Valley in South Wales that will supposedly be sold to become a GB track, and there does appear to be significant substance to that. I don't think anything has been signed yet, the way I understand it, but if you said to me lay odds on it happening, I would say it's 4-7. So I think that will happen. And it's going to become part of a transition as we approach the big movement, which is in the next 2 years, where once the Entain tracks switch over to join the ARC service and leave the SIS service, there are going to be some big gaps in the SIS service. And I believe Valley will be one of those that's there to slot in, alongside, of course, Oxford and Suffolk Downs, which will be up and running very much sooner. I think when I spoke to Kevin the other day, I think Suffolk Downs 6 weeks and Oxford 4 weeks after that. I mean, if we look ahead though, and again, there's a little bit of duplication here on something else I've done, but there would have to be concerns, would there not, in amongst some of the tracks currently contracted to ARC when they're taking on four colossi in terms of the Entain tracks. There's only a limited number of fixtures out there, aren't there?
Well, my own personal thoughts on it, and the reason I made move, you look at people investing in tracks and where the investment is, and I look around and you see some very tired places and there's no investment going in. You start thinking to yourself, well, what's happening here? And then you see Kevin really is banging some money in there, like, and stuff. I mean, he must have a pot of gold in the bottom of his garden, because he is really, really investing in this sport. And I think he's probably the only one out there, what is investing. And you have to turn around and say, I've got to support somebody who's investing in this sport and do something and try and help them. I mean, my own situation, I was only just reading today from the RSPCA girl, Sam Gaines. We were talking about mental health, and I think it is a hard thing to talk about. And I was getting very depressed and getting real down in the dumps, and seriously questioning what I'm doing, because it was upsetting when you're losing dogs, and you see your strength go down by nearly half with injuries. And same as mother says, we're every day bringing these dogs out. You're seeing these dogs and you're working with these dogs, and my mental health was really starting to suffer. And I thought to myself, I either give up or I make a change or something, because I was starting to get worried about myself, thinking, it's no good. It's getting you down, Peter. You come home, you fall out with people because you're not happy, and you just think to yourself, well, 24 years I was at Nottingham Floyd, and you start thinking to yourself, I've put a lot of time into this place, and I've done everything I can. I don't want to ever leave, but if I don't leave, what's going to happen to myself? Because you're driving home, you're in despair and you're in the dumps. So that's why I decided to move, from the good of myself really, and the good of my kennels and stuff, and trying to have a change and just trying to pep myself up. And hopefully, the wife said to me, she said, you need to do something, Peter, you need to change or do something. I took it to Toaster and she thought it was lovely. I mean, the wife's a big supporter of me, like, and the kennels. Without the wife, I wouldn't be doing the dog racing, etc. I'd have to go out there and get a proper job.
Yes, of course. I guess the other thing to kind of to bring into consideration is that, as we said, if there are tracks coming on board, if the tracks like Valley coming on board, Mildenhall, Suffolk Downs reopening, Oxford coming back, then we are going to be losing tracks too. On
that, Floyd, we have got to think about the people, and about their state of their mental health, etc. Because this is their life. These dogs are their life. It's their love. And we can't just flippantly turn around and go, well, that track's closing, or right, we're taking meetings off here, you're not going to get your runners. Because some of the rest of these people are skint. All the money they're ploughing in to feed the dogs, and they're not even looking after themselves properly. And, to turn around and go, oh, right, you're not getting so many more meetings, or, even changing. These meetings just flip so quickly. Oh, you're not running Tuesday, you're running on the Wednesday, or you're not running Wednesday, you're running on Thursday. People have got home lives. They might have young kids at home and swapping things around, or the family members can be on different shifts. Nobody ever gives a jot about people's home lives or how it's affecting them. And the industry's got to change, and they've got to think about the people a little bit more than what they do. And if it don't change, there's going to be some serious upset people out there. And I fear for people's own health, like, and stuff, because it's not. It affects people, Floyd, and they need to think this. It's not just commercial strategy and thinking about the pound notes. They need to think about people a bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly when you combine various sort of factors, at the moment you're looking at this labour shortage, people wages being hiked because companies are desperate to get people. You think how many hours greyhound people put in, and they must look at some of these other jobs outside the industry and think, my God, I could be doing a 40-hour week, none of the responsibility, none of the worry. I could be earning twice as what I'm earning now. I mean, you are independently financially able to do what you're doing. For a lot of people, they will just literally have to walk, won't they?
Well, it's only this week. I was actually going to finish on the 1st of August. And because obviously of my situation, I think somebody obviously realised actually I could leave, and I was leaving. So I just had no runners this week. I had 2 on the Monday and I've had no other runners. Well, that, you know, for me, that could have been £1,500 gone this week because of the situation. What somebody's decided that, well, if you're leaving, you can go. Well, lucky enough, I can take that. But some people, that could have crippled them. You shouldn't be doing this sort of thing to people, like, and stuff. You know, this is the dogs and feeding the dogs and stuff. You know, especially on my case, 24 years. I think that's a good service to provide anybody, and not even to say a goodbye. I mean, I've not had a goodbye or thanks for your time or thanks for your service. I've had nothing, and it's, you know, I think it's disgusting. You know, I wouldn't do that to an employee of me who'd worked for 24 years and provided good service and probably been one of the best servants they could have ever had. I'd turn around and think, well, I'm gutted you're going, but thanks very much for what you've done for us. And it's, you know, it's a poor industry, and it's poor people within the industry to think that is acceptable. And I would not think it's acceptable. I think it's classless. I really do.
To be fair, I mean, the circumstances you're describing aren't so different from what we've kind of got used to, are they? I mean, if you look at the way GRA have traditionally behaved, you know, I'm sorry, you're no longer used to us. You know, literally, they in the past they've just thrown trainers out of tracks. They're not in a position to do, or GRA don't exist anymore, but tracks are not in that position anymore, where they can simply say to a trainer, you know, I'm sorry, you've got 15 dogs, but we can replace you with somebody else with 15 dogs. It doesn't work like that anymore, does it?
The world's changed, Floyd. This isn't about greyhound racing. It's the world in general. It's changed. We need a different mentality, and we're still in the dark ages within dog racing, that what we think is acceptable, and it's not. In the wider world, it's not acceptable. So why should it be acceptable in the dog racing? Well, it's not. And, you know, these people need to realise we're not going to accept the fear factor that if that happens, you're sacked, or we're not happy about this, we're going to stamp the feet. Fear factor is gone. You know, you employ people through decency. And I mean, I haven't got a contract with Kevin, and he says, I don't need to. I'm paying you well. You'll be happy. If you're not happy, then you're free to go. Well, that's how it should be.
Yes.
You know, do you really want somebody tied to your track if they're not happy, if they're a bit down the dumps, or you're not being paid properly? No, do the job properly, treat people with respect, treat them nicely. They won't want to go. You know, I want to work with somebody who's like that. So, you know, that's how it should be.
I take that on board. I just want to drag this conversation back a little bit to something we talked about a few minutes ago. When we're talking about the likes of Suffolk Downs reopening, not so much Oxford, because Oxford is a decent quality stadium surrounded by lots and lots of chimney pots. I think will be a massive success. We're talking about Suffolk Downs. I know, because I used to live there. I used to Mildenhall was I lived there for a period of time. There is nothing there that it does in many ways represent the direction that greyhound racing has gone, which leads me then to say, well, a meeting from Suffolk or a race from Suffolk Downs is going to be as much worth to the betting shop as a race from somewhere where the stadium might be £3 or £4 million an acre, if it's sold for development. That, I'm wondering, is the next stage that we're going, because we've lost most of the really lucrative sites. I mean, even somewhere like Bellevue wasn't particularly lucrative, but had enough about it. Certainly Wimbledon, Walthamstow, going back, Haringey, they were all significant money.
But that's where this industry totally got into bed with the bookmakers, and they totally forgot about the leisure pound, and they didn't go out there trying to entice the public in there. You know, compared to horse racing, the owners get treated like dirt in dog racing. They're not looked at. Why buy a dog, and what do you get for it? You might as well just pick somebody else's and make out it's your own. You know, we don't treat people well. You know, we don't get them through the gates because most of these promoters don't really want them because they're happy just getting the money off the bookmakers and screening it out into the betting shops. Well, that's all right. I've had a discussion with a chap today regarding it. You would not mind that model if then Joe Soap, who's training the dog, gets paid a good wage or a good income out of it to provide that. Because in your head, you think to yourself, fair enough, this is a different model we're going to now. And I'm earning a wage to replicate, accept with that. And you work with it, but you're not. Instead of having the owners what's paying you some decent money to keep the dog, or, you're mixing, you're having a night out, you're enjoying yourself. You're not. You go in there, you're sat in the van, you're miserable, you're down the dumps because it's not the racing what you ever fell in love with, and you're not even earning the money from it. Whereas if you were earning good money, you might be sat in the van and you might say, so what am I doing this for? Well, I'm doing it because I'm the pound notes. And then everyone's happy, but you're not. Everyone's down in the dumps and they're not getting the money for it. And you think to yourself, well, this isn't the game that I was involved in.